Hello, family. I come to you very quickly on what is a brisk Monday morning. It's the end of March. And my content team, this is the reason I'm putting this together. My content team has just sent me something. And in fact, they'd sent it to me about 2 months ago, and it's sat in the company Slack, and I didn't see it. And then they reminded me about a month ago, and I went through it, and I was like, I'm not sure this is going to work. But I'm decided you guys have to see this video. So this is a conversation between Davies, who is a mentee of mine on the Club 100 platform. I should say, he's also an advisory board member on Club 100. It's a conversation he and I had last year while I was in Birmingham. Davies is of Nigerian origin, and he now lives in the West Midlands in the United Kingdom. He spends his time working with founders and entrepreneurs, helping them build businesses, raise capital, and unlock not only capital markets, but also get product market fit and accelerate the rate at which they can build their businesses. Truly, truly a great conversation. Fair warning, first, it's a very technical conversation. So at the very beginning of the conversation, it's slow to start. It takes a little bit to get into the conversation. Be patient with it and just listen. Second, this is not the highly inspirational, motivational conversation. It's the technical conversation where you can learn stuff. So it's when you are at the how part of your journey, not the why part of your journey. And so for those of you who are at the how do I raise capital? How do I talk to investors? How do I get product market fit? Where do I find investors? How do I put together a pitch deck? All of those things. He's got some really, really great and fascinating insights that I think you're going to share. And then in between it, he and I kind of shoot the breeze talking about, the world, politics, culture, religion, and a whole host of stuff. I think you're going to love this interview. This is my conversation with Davies. Cheers. If you're going to play in politics, you must accept that there is no clean way to play a dirty game. People will say things about you that are slanderous, that are not true. They don't need those things to be true. They just need those things to soil your image. I've had this happen to me. People don't believe what's true. They believe what's often said. Propaganda is everything. People don't understand that the father of propaganda was also the father of PR. These are literally the same things.
Same thing.
And the only reason he changed the name from propaganda to PR was because propaganda became a bad name used by the Nazi government. By the way, this is the power of the United States. The United States understands this well. That's why you've never watched a movie coming out of Hollywood where the United States Army goes into any country and it's done the bad thing. So the startup ecosystem. So you moved here 2020. Then what happened?
In 2020.
Yeah, you just moved here, then what?
I moved here. My ticket in was to do a master's degree in entrepreneurship at Aston University, which is just down the road.
Aston,
yeah.
Okay.
Aston Uni.
Like the car?
Yeah. So we've got Aston Martin, Aston University, and Aston Villa.
Right.
Yeah. And there's a place called Aston in Birmingham. So.
Any relation with these places? Does Aston Martin come from Aston?
No.
Oh,
not
okay.
necessarily.
Okay.
Yeah, not necessarily. So did a master's at Aston, and because again for me coming here was a very intentional move. So even before I came here, I'd started engaging with players in the ecosystem digitally, and so the moment my master's started, I then started managing a community of entrepreneurs. It's called Birmingham Enterprise Community. They're actually based out of here. And then managed that whilst I was doing my studies. And then when I finished with my studies, I started a pitch deck design agency doing pitch decks for entrepreneurs that I was looking to raise. And then I think I only did that for about 4 months before, I would say my cerebral nature in the space sort of got noticed. And then someone from there's a government organization that delivers business support. At the time was called the Greater Birmingham Lab. They are paid by the
Greater Birmingham Lab.
Yeah, so Greater Birmingham Local Enterprise Partnership,
Gotcha.
LEP. So the LEPs generally were a business support mechanism funded by the government to deliver business support to businesses across the UK. So there were 38 of them, but they were funded. The majority of the funding was from the EU. So when the Brexit happened,
they pulled the funding.
The replacement funding that the UK government put in place was nowhere near sufficient.
Gotcha.
So all the labs went away, and then they all molded locally into different things. So in my case, I was working with the Greater Birmingham Lab to deliver investment readiness support to businesses. And then when the LEPs went away, the investment, so there was myself and a colleague of mine, Vernon Hogg, we were the two people delivering investment readiness specifically. And then when the LEPs went away, the combined authority, which is the regional government, then contracted the delivery of that investment readiness support to an organization called Oxford Innovation Advice. They provide business support solutions to government. So government pays them, they then deploy into communities. So Oxford Innovation Advice then won the contract to deliver investment readiness, and they literally just, said who's in the region doing it, because they literally had no footprint
No resources,
here.
yeah.
And then so they literally just hired myself and Vernon to just continue the work we're doing.
Very interesting. And you're still doing this work?
Yes, because it's been quite successful since we started. So
How do you know?
Since we started, I joined in January 2022. I think Vernon started in the role about 8 months before me. And between then and now, we've supported the raise of just over £13 million.
Not bad.
And considering the fact that that is across like 60 different founders,
Yeah, it's substantial, yeah.
equity, debt, grant, because we deal with all stages, all sectors, all types of funding. The only criteria the businesses have to meet is that they are based locally. That's the only criteria. So we provide all our support to them. So we did that and supported the raise of all of that funding, because the founders obviously do all the work, but we just there to guide them through the process. And we put together a fundraising accelerator program called Founders Collective. We started that in May 2022, I believe. We're currently running the 19th cohort.
Explain the accelerator program to me.
So it's a 5-week program where over the course of the 5 weeks, we're focused intensely on educating the entrepreneurs on the core things that helps you through the fundraising journey. So in week 1, we talk about the fundraising landscape across the UK and then how to put together a fundraising strategy, which are sessions that I deliver. And then in week 2, we talk about putting together their pitch decks and personal branding for you as an entrepreneur when you're going to market. And then in week 3, I deliver a session of financial modeling, and we bring in some legal experts from some of the legal firms across the city to deliver on shareholder agreement, founders agreement, all the legal bits and bobs you would need in fundraising. And then in week 4, we bring in a few other stakeholders in the ecosystem to talk about the grants that are available, protecting your intellectual property, aligning with net zero target and all those things, and all that jazz. What else do we do in week 4? And then in week 5, we do crowdfunding. So we get someone from Cedars, which is one of the leading crowdfunding platforms, to deliver a session. And then we're bringing one of the VCs in the area to talk about equity and the entire journey of equity. And what else do we cover? And then, so we wrap up with Vernon and I, just answering questions from like a field experience. So that is the program, once a week for 5 weeks, 3 hours a day. And the entrepreneurs then also get to book one-to-one sessions to then tailor all the learnings to their journey. And whilst we've been running it, we've always seen 3 outcomes. Some of the entrepreneurs on the program will successfully raise.
Right.
Some will figure out that they don't need to raise, they just need to change strategy. And some will figure out that what they're doing is not even working at all and they need to pivot altogether.
Sounds interesting.
We just help them through that journey.
Tell me about and I ask just from an interest point of view. So if you're on the VC side, is the VC ecosystem active here?
Yes, the VC ecosystem is active.
What's active in it?
So
Any specific sectors, any particular stages?
No, so in the region, the two primary VCs in the region that are very active, and then there are lots of VCs across the country that we can tap into as well. But for the two that are primarily in the region, they both invest in seed stage businesses.
Why?
So, big massive question. Because according to the narrative or the sentiment in the ecosystem, so backstory. Birmingham consistently over the last 5 years has been the city in the UK outside of London with the highest startup rate.
Wow.
And
Why is everything in Birmingham referenced outside of London? Is London like its own gravitational field? Is it?
somebody said, I heard this, and I think it is true, that the UK is a poor country anchored to a rich city.
That makes sense to me.
So
That actually makes sense. Having seen and experienced the UK, that makes sense.
generally speaking, London is treated as a separate entity in the UK because you can't, there is no basis of comparison, whether it's
Sure.
infrastructure,
Sure,
network, wealth, everything.
Sure.
So generally speaking, UK language, anytime you're saying anything, you have to say outside of London, this is what happens in the rest of the
Gotcha.
country.
In other words, there's London and there's the real
There's
country.
London. And there is, I mean, I pay attention to the Global Startup Ecosystem Report. London and New York are always exchanging the second position in the world
first, yeah.
every year.
Yeah.
San Francisco is one.
Yeah.
And in the top 30 in the world, there is no other UK city. But then when you look at the emerging ecosystems, then you find places like Bristol, Birmingham, Manchester, and things of that nature. So it's always looked at that way. So Birmingham, generally speaking, very high startup rate. But then also very high startup failure rate. Now, in the city, one of the sentiments that permeates the ecosystem is that we have some scale-ups, and what we need to do, the problem that we have is that we need to translate, the scale-up, invest more on the scale-up so that they can do a bit more. And I personally have been campaigning on the fact that you're killing your pipeline if you're not providing funding, because for the early stage startups, there are three fundamental problems they have. Access to market, access to capital, speed to market. Because I deal with a lot of early stage founders that have great ideas, great concepts, but just the fact that it takes a bit of time to build their product and all of that, and they're struggling to get funding because there is no pre-seed stage funding and all of that, and they go round and round in circles. We try the best that we can with them, and sometimes you find people taking 18 months to actually build the first product. And before you know it, the founders left that and then just gone to get a corporate job. Because in the region, there are 13 universities.
You keep saying in the region. By that you mean what?
The West Midlands.
Gotcha.
The West Midlands. So Birmingham is sort of like in the West Midlands, there are three major cities. Birmingham is by far the biggest. So there's Birmingham, Coventry, and Wolverhampton. All those three cities are within the West Midlands region, and then there's so many other smaller towns and stuff. Birmingham is the anchor for all of that. But then because of the proximity, location-wise, we tend to refer to the region a lot because, again, a lot of when Birmingham sneezes, the West Midlands catches cold.
I'm with you.
So in the region, there are about 13 universities, 7 of them like top-level universities. So there's a lot of international talent that comes here. And then people are trying to start businesses, and then before you know it, they get into corporate because speed to market is a problem. There's no access to capital at that very early stage, and then access to market as well.
When you say speed to market, what does that mean?
So what I mean is, for a startup founder, if you got a great concept right now,
Yeah.
and you're looking to take that concept to market,
Yeah.
Depending on what the business is, in between what you have to do to build a team, build a product, get it tested, begin to engage, all of that. Particularly on the product side, because obviously you can't begin to validate until you have something.
To be clear, we're
That takes a
talking really,
long time.
this is seed stuff, eh?
Yeah, seed stuff.
This is crazy to me.
So ultimately, where Birmingham really needs a lot of work is funneling resources into that early stage so that you can feed the pipeline. But the powers that be don't seem to think that way. But thankfully, this year, just a few months ago, there's an organization called Vusi, called Greater Things.
Greater Things.
Greater Things.
Right.
Their structure is very simple. So it's a guy that I know, I've had this conversation before, and they've actually come with a solution. So the guy who founded it he's had an extensive career in finance, in technology, and his last venture was a venture in the region called Million Labs. So they build tech products using no code, low code, and AI, right? And then so what Greater Things have done, the model that they've put forward is they invest £10,000 in a founder, but that money goes to building their product.
I hear you.
AI, no code, low code. So that product gets built. You, the founder, take it to market. You begin to engage with the market. and prove the concept. If it works and you get traction, they've got up to an additional £250,000 that they can invest in you. And then if it doesn't work, and you're on the books for, so it's a 10,000. I think the way it's structured in the term sheet, if it doesn't work, the 10,000 is like a loan, pretty much. So you have to pay back at your pace. But if it works, you have a product to market, and then you can go. Now that is the first solution that actually works, for that pre-seed, very early stage market to get people traction.
Yeah. How do you feel about the Nigeria startup ecosystem?
How do I feel about the Nigerian startup ecosystem? I feel that, number one, it's got a lot of promise just because of the trajectory of what is expected to happen in the future years based on the demography. So promise, great. I think the economics right now are very tough for any active player. Over the last 1 year, not only have we lost the number of clients because the Nigerian business was still active.
Your accounting firm?
My accounting firm.
Right.
So lost a lot of clients, and even we ourselves have struggled because it's not just that the clients are having challenges with revenue because everything is just inflation crazy. So our clients are having a problem with revenue. They're shutting down, they're losing, and they're cutting, obviously, when you're cutting costs, having an accounting practice or management accounting firm that is sitting with you on a monthly basis, doing strategy work with you based on your numbers.
You're trying to survive.
Which is what we do. They cut all of that. And then, so that's number one problem. But the bigger problem is talent. Because all my guys have left. Right?
Where did they go?
Historically, all the people that have come through Enterprise, which is my firm, have always been poached by the Big Four or people that can pay significant money because they've got international exchange rate powers, pretty much.
And is that still the case, or did they jump us somewhere?
That is still the case. In fact, my team members that have left didn't leave to Japa somewhere.
They just went to bigger firms.
So they could pay better money, pretty much. We had a great relationship. They have a great relationship with everybody, and I'm very happy for them. It's just what it is. And also, to be fair, a lot of that as well had to do with the fact that as a firm, we weren't doing great from a revenue and income and ability to pay standpoint. Because, so last year, was it last year? Yeah, about 15 months ago. So when I left, I had a team, and then I had a guy, one of the guy who was leading tax at the time I was there, became the CEO. And then when he left in a very bad way, right?
Why?
It was unexpected. It was just out of the blue. So it was unexpected. It was out of the blue. There was a number of things that, there were a number of client work that he hadn't managed really well. And then to make matters worse, the other person that was most experienced, because at the time I had 3 employees that were operational. The other person that was next most experienced also left. So they both left together. And the only person that was remaining in the business had only just joined 3 months before.
I see the issue.
Yeah. So
you basically had to start up again.
So I literally went back to zero. So I think it was from July 2023 to it was 2022. I think it was 2022. From July 2022 to December 2022, I was pretty much firefighting and coordinating with the one operational person, and I had the fractional COO, which is a very close friend of mine. She oversees all my business in Nigeria, who was helping with all of that, but she's not operational in terms of doing the accounting and taxes. And so,
what accounting systems do you put your clients on?
We use all tools, whatever it is that is most appropriate for them based on their type of business. So we use Xero, QuickBooks, Wave, Sage, any tool pretty much, really. But those are the primary ones.
What analytics tool do you use?
So generally speaking, we don't use any additional analytics tools. We use the accounting, we extract the numbers, and then I used to do it, and then I trained the entire team to do it, to look at numbers and be able to interpret them into strategic decisions. And that was the core uniqueness that we're built around. And so they would take the numbers and they would analyze it and they would write reports. We need to do more of this, less of this, stop doing this, and then write that as a report sent to the client and then have a strategy meeting with them. So it was a active engagement with the client.
But if I'm understanding you, what you're saying is the macros changed. Because the macros changed, your clients couldn't afford you.
Yeah. So the macros change right now, and clients, we lost all the clients. Plus, right now, there is no active business development work ongoing.
Of course, because there's nobody on the ground driving.
Exactly, because nobody on the ground. So where we're at right now.
But from a growth perspective, sorry, I'm interrupting you. You are thinking here, this is where the growth is for you.
Yes, primarily, because we are, again, because we're building afresh.
Now, why haven't you recruited clients here to get the work done in Nigeria? You could get the currency arbitrage.
So this is what we're currently doing. So up until now, which is bringing me to a very important piece of the strategy for me. So up until now, so I only just registered Enterprise Hill UK last month, right, to begin the work here. Because the plan now with that is, so we're servicing a UK client, and then we're going to be doing the arbitrage work, particularly around bookkeeping service, because there's a massive shortage of bookkeepers here.
I know this.
So this is the restructure. So we're rebuilding the team back.
Especially medium-sized firms.
Exactly. So we're rebuilding the Nigerian firm, and we're just going to be outsourcing bookkeeping work to them. And Enterprise Hill in UK is focused on 3 core verticals: growth strategy, investment readiness and fundraising support to the businesses, and then financial management, so management accounting. So we're rolling all those 3 things together, and we're positioning ourselves as a firm that does these 3 things for businesses that are intentional about growth and raising capital. We will do that work here, and then all the nitty-gritty bookkeeping work goes back home, and then we'll do arbitrage that way.
Nice. Well done. Seems you got a solid plan.
Yes, that is one part of the plan. The other half of it is I've got another company. So my pitch deck design company that I told you about, because when I shut that down, shut the service down, the company kept active. So what I'm doing with that is I'm building a few digital tools that could help entrepreneurs in that fundraising journey. Because generally speaking, as you very well know, if you put 100 entrepreneurs together that are looking to fundraise, 90 of them are doing it for the first time.
Yes.
The investors have done it several times, so there's that information asymmetry.
There's asymmetry, yeah.
So what I'm trying to do with Pitch Hub is building a number of digital tools that helps you through that journey. Because, I mean, we're lucky here in the West Midlands in the fact that there is government-funded business support, and I can provide my expertise to businesses at no cost to them because the government pays for it. There's so many places across the world.
That's not the case.
That's not the case. So I've built already a fundraising funding fees assessment, which is a very simple tool just to determine the right type of capital.
So that's the one you gave the QR code
Exactly,
to?
that's the one I give the QR code. So that's one.
How did you build that, by the way? Is it like did you build some sort of binary answering these questions?
Yeah,
that
just binary answers.
Particular?
Absolutely. So that was the methodology behind it. Because when I was building that, actually, it was just meant to be a lead magnet, really. Because the second thing I'm building is an investment readiness platform. So the job of that is to assess a business across all the core areas of investment readiness. So I've got a methodology that I use for investment readiness.
What is it?
So we're evaluating the business for viability and feasibility, all of that. Then we're evaluating the market for the quantum of the opportunities. Then we evaluate the founders for the ability to effectively execute. And then we do a lot of work around the fundraising strategy, which is when does the round open, when does it close, how much are we looking for what rate, what type of investor, what type of capital mix, and all of that. So that's a fundraising strategy bit, which is the 4th vertical. And then there is operational readiness, which is ensuring that all of the operations are ready for DD. And then the last bit of that is their fundraising documentation. So their pitch decks, their teaser pitch, their financial models, putting all of that together.
Say it again, the whole thing?
The business, the market, the founder, operational readiness, fundraising strategy, fundraising documentation.
Where have you seen the biggest gaps?
Interesting. Well, so if you take those two
and I want to
things-
make sure I understand, when you say business, you mean product market fit?
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely. Because the thing is, on the one hand, you have the business-related stuff. So what is the concept and all of that? And then the market opportunity, massive opportunity there because the bulk of my experience and the businesses I still deal with are early stage businesses. So this is, businesses are pre-seed, seed. I think the most I've dealt with is Series A.
Got you.
So a bulk of my experience is in that space. So a lot of them are still dealing with product market fit, trying to get that traction going so that they can get the right interest and stuff.
It's a different set of problems.
So those are the areas. So the investment readiness platform is to evaluate a business on its investability, looking at it from the lens of the business as an investment proposition. Will this make sense to investors on the one hand? And then the other side of it is investment readiness. So the part that talks about the business, the market, the founder, focuses on investability. And then the part that talks about your DD readiness, your fundraising strategy, and your funding documentation is investment readiness. So you're ready to go to market.
But this sounds, all of this, Davies, sounds very high touch. Is there no way to automate this and to put it on a technology platform that it might create the journey so that if I'm a user, I pay up front and then I go through the processes myself?
So this is what I'm trying to build with the investment readiness platform.
Right.
The ratings platform. So the idea is once the platform is live, the entrepreneur will answer a set of questions, and then through the questionnaire they would get a scoring across all of these metrics, see where they're doing well, and get recommendations as well as to how they can be better, and then sort of project manage that journey to becoming better, both on investability and investment readiness on the platform.
That's clever. I mean, especially today with machine learning, there's a lot you can build into the data sets that would allow the user to actually get better and the user experience to improve with every single user that you're onboarding, right?
Absolutely. So that is currently being built with the Greater Things guys that I talked about. So they're doing the build for that at the moment. So
what's the cost?
Yeah, they're £10,000, which is their investment into the business.
Gotcha.
And that is for 5% equity, by the way.
That's not bad.
Yeah.
Geez, 10,000. So that values your £200,000.
£200,000, which is something that doesn't exist for all early stage businesses. I mean,
is there what are the competing platforms that are out there doing something similar?
None. In the region, none. Maybe in London, I don't know, but in the West Midlands or other parts of the UK that I know of. None.
Why is the region a geographic qualifier for you? Surely, if it's a technology product, you're going to be competing with everybody else anywhere else in the world that's doing it.
No. Are you talking about my product or the investment platform?
Yeah, no, the investment readiness platform.
Oh, no. So no.
So you guys are thinking about deploying that purely for your native community?
No. So I'm thinking of deploying that globally.
And for deploying it globally, who would be your competitors?
So in the UK, there is one company that does something similar. So they're called a Fund IQ. Mm-hmm. They do something similar. I've used the platform once before. So all that does is they send you like a 20-page report where 18 of the pages are just standardized stuff, template and stuff. And they just say, and they just award you a rating over 1,000, saying to this degree is what your investment ready. That's about all they do. So they're a UK company. When they started, they were called Capital Pilot. And the way they got traction was if you ranked in the upper echelons of their rating, you automatically get, they raised a £5 million fund and deployed it as 50K pre-seed investment into the businesses, 100 businesses. So they raised 5 million and then they did that investment.
I always find it so risky when fund managers do that, because you're putting the entire future of your fund economics on whether or not the proprietary piece of technology that's giving these scores is going to be accurate in predicting whether or not these businesses are actually going to deliver. I mean, it's such a risky
So they
strategy. Started
with that. They built the platform, and then they were trying to raise a second round because they planned that the 5 million they were probably going to deploy it over a year. They deployed it in 4 months.
Gotcha.
And then, because of the financial appeal, for me, I was even promoting to my clients, you guys need to use this platform because it's a source to get that very critical first step of funding. They deployed the money in 4 months, and then they tried to raise a second round, and then struggled and didn't raise the second round, and then sold the technology to the company called Funding IQ. So those are the core.
I would love to see
what they've got.
Yeah, I'd love to see their performance. I'd love to see the fund IRRs. I must confess, I'm yet to come across a fund that uses that kind of model that can actually deliver on the IRRs that it promises. Because at the end of the day, managing assets, particularly managing capital, requires a person there making discretionary decisions. Just because a computer says, And that's a hugely contentious point, right? Because somebody will say, well, if that is the case, then there are a number of quant-only, machine learning, AI-driven quant funds that that trade. But the point is that those trade on open markets where there is no information asymmetry. So if I'm trading a particular stock or a particular derivative or a particular financial product, I'm trading a financial product on the open market based on information that has already been disclosed, right? And a piece of machinery can compute all of that information.
And
it's just not the case in this environment.
Absolutely,
in this environment, you don't know what you don't know.
Human beings are dynamic. Businesses are dynamic. So when it cannot be absolute, pretty much is the point. When you apply the machine learning and all the algorithms to make these decisions, even when it comes out the other end, it's not absolute. But I think for me, in building what I'm building, the perspective is let the founders go in there with a full view of themselves. And then with that, they can make the best decisions, or they can make the most of the conversations, however they're going to do it.
Second last. How did you get into this? What was happening in your life that you were like, this is something I want to be doing?
So it's everything that I've done.
Did you study accounting?
Yeah.
Right.
So my background was in accounting. So it's all just converged. So I'll give you a quick whistle-stop tour of my journey. I came to a realization of self in 2010. Accepted Christ in 2010, even though I was born to a Christian family. Discovered that I wanted to be an entrepreneur in 2010. Watched an episode of The Apprentice, Donald Trump, and I was like, this is what I want to do with my life. Took between 2010 and 2014, just kept studying entrepreneurship, everybody I could find. Tapes, videos, whatever, audiobooks. 2014, I discovered my speaking gift. 2015, I founded Enterprise Hill. And 2020, I decided to move to the UK, started the pitch deck stuff, and was doing speaking engagements here and there, and then got into the investment readiness. But ultimately, even when I started the accounting firm, because I graduated uni in 2012, right? I did national service for a year. And then in 2015, when I started, I literally was just like, I'm very passionate about helping entrepreneurs grow. That's all my learning has been geared towards. Accounting is a tool, because I studied that in uni. I could literally do accounting for small businesses. I mean, all those big guys are not going to do them, right? And that's how I started. I literally never worked anywhere. No experience, nothing. So started that way. And so very early on, and then came across you in 2015. I started consuming a lot of your content and a few other thought leaders. And so very early on, I was very deeply steeped in strategy. And then I had the playground of my startup to actually work on business strategy from a financial standpoint and all of that. So grew that way, and then started doing a lot of speaking engagement around accounting, finance, business growth strategy and all of that. And then started doing pitch decks and all of those kind of things, because a few of my clients were applying for grant and funding and things of that nature. So I started doing pitch decks, and by nature, because I was the accountant, we're doing financial models for them. And then, so when I got in here to the UK, and then I got into that investment readiness job, it was like, this is tailor-made for me, because number one, I love sitting with startups and helping them figure stuff out, which is what I do day in, day out. Number two, I've got a financial background. I know what to do for them. Number three, I know how to put decks together. And then that role, which is the same role I'm still in, then gives me access to interface a lot, because once we get the businesses ready, we introduce them to some of the investors in the region, and there's some others that we know. So I started interfacing with investors as well, understanding really deeply what they were looking for. So earlier this year, so late last year, from a financial personal standpoint, I was under pressure because I feel I wasn't making enough money ultimately for just to take care of all the things I had to take care of. And then so late last year, I was thinking, okay, so in addition to the work that I'm doing, how about because at this point, I didn't have any extra business interest. So I thought, okay, maybe I begin to do speaking engagements for corporate and try to position that way, because obviously corporates have money and stuff. But the joining Club 100 and some of those early conversations we had this year did me a massive reset.
Really?
Yep, absolutely. And it was through those conversations that it crystallized for me that ideally, the common denominator across everything I'd done was getting businesses ready to grow and helping them raise funds if that happens to be something they need along that journey. And so I made a conscious decision at that point to begin to build my brand around investment readiness. And so the strategy is, obviously, the work that I do is also investment readiness. So that really did help. So I started consciously building my brand around that, creating content specifically around that, using the term a lot, investment readiness. And I'm still currently in the role. My plan is, I've got a 6-month transition plan. The plan at the moment is build all the verticals. So the products, I've got the funding feed built, the investment readiness platform is being built. I also intend to build something to give you a basis for valuation.
Nice.
Yep. So there's going to be a similar platform with a basis for valuation using all the different metrics that could use IP, sales, future cash flow, market, competing. So bring all of that together. So those are 3 platforms I'm building on the Pitch Hub, while the accounting company does, intentional consulting work, accounting, management accounting, fundraising, and all of that. So those are 2 entities. So the plan over the next 6 months is get all those products built. Now that the company is registered, or my accounting company is registered in London. So the plan is to begin to engage with clients in London and acquire clients for that, such that by March next year, the businesses are already generating enough revenue to substitute for my income at the moment, and then I leave and then focus fully on the business.
How do you think about building a team around executing these things? I hear a lot of I in your thinking.
Yep. Team is very critical. I am very aware about the importance of it. At the minute, I'm not able to bring in a lot of team members from just purely from a financial standpoint. But what I'm doing is just leveraging what is available to me. So my wife's background is in operations, so she helps with a bit of research here and there, and I just do all the other bits of stuff. So the plan right now, so with the accounting firm, I've got a partner. So I've got a co-founder who used to run an accounting firm himself and then sold his firm.
Got you.
So he does all the accounting work on the firm. I just need to do the business development work pretty much. So he does all the accounting work on that side. And right now with the products, a lot of that is in developmental phase. So the investment readiness platform and things of that nature, I'm just overseeing. So ultimately, my intent and hope is with early traction with my firm and revenue from there, can then hire strategically to begin to build the team so that by the time I arrive at March next year, we're good to run.
If there were 3 features that you think one should consider critical, either existing or to build into Club 100 as a final question, what would they be?
3 critical features into Club 100. I think the first thing that would readily come to mind is support split across verticals.
Okay, tell me more.
Because my thinking is everyone who comes to Club 100 comes from a standpoint of, I want to learn, I want to get mentored, but those are very generic statements.
Yeah, that's a very generic position.
Right. It's either you're at a point where what you need is, some strategy work, some marketing work, some legal work, some, business. So it's literally trying to structure the interventions around specific verticals so that people can identify with, where they're at, or people with similar problems, and then learn and grow collectively. That for me is sort of like the very first thing that jumps to mind.
So basically break up so from a features perspective, break the product into various features based on the needs of the consumer, of the customer, and then meet them at the point of support based on each of those verticals.
Absolutely.
And then build a support pathway into each of those verticals. That's
Absolutely.
Cool. What are the other 2?
So that would be number 1. I think number 2 is, again, I think we already have the structures for this with the board and some of the other things that we talked about, but it would be creating more engagement that are led by members of the community.
Yeah, that's important.
Specific learning. I think that is very,
especially
very
learning.
Yeah, so specific learning, because, I say this all the time. We all might have come to Club 100 to learn and grow and get mentored and stuff. but also in each of our different verticals and spaces,
I believe it.
we know our stuff, right? So leveraging on that pool, because you know, one of the things I think about is, you know, there could be somebody doing marketing in Zambia and there's somebody doing marketing in the US, right? They're doing the same thing, but just that cross-national learning of the experiences of how it's done in that international space and how it's done here, and the thing, there's always that immigrant's perspective where, you know, you see how somebody else does something that's completely different from you. You can spot all the things that are different. And they can say, okay, and innovation happens at the intersection of two industries. Like they say, if I see how you're doing it there and I know nobody's doing it like that here, I can borrow those ideas and bring it in. So I think that definitely is something that we could incorporate.
Nice.
Yeah.
Like that. I like that.
Yeah, I think that's crucial.
And your plans for the next 5 years?
My plans for the next 5 years. Do I see that far? Yeah, I do.
I would hope so.
Yeah, so generally speaking, my approach with those things is, again, like you, I'm very, very steeped in faith, and I lead as the Lord leads. I know what the crucial next step is. The plan from that point is just to grow it exponentially. So let's get into some specifics around that. Number one, over the next 2 years, my strategic objective is to get the businesses to 2 million in revenue, 2 million pounds in revenue by August 2026. So that's the first core objective.
That's a big number.
Milestone. It is a big number.
It's a lot of billable hours.
The motivation is both intrinsic and extrinsic as well. The thing is, it's a lot of billable hours, but there's two businesses. There's a technology business that is literally, primarily, I'm looking at it going to be a licensing play.
Gotcha.
Right, on the, you know, all the tech ones, and then there is the accounting side. The angle as well to the accounting bit is we do get a number of client inquiries, just generally from experience, of people that would say, okay, you know, we can pay your fees. We'll pay 70% of it. We'll give you X equity. If you're able to successfully help us raise, you take X percentage. So I'm banking that all of those things together can get to that point. So that's number one. Now, across all the businesses, again, the primary driver is my investment readiness narrative and brand. And I'm trying to actively grow my brand, grow my speak. I'm very well known in the business speaking circuit in Birmingham. I need to expand that massively to across the UK. And then globally.
And what do you speak on?
Investment readiness and everything that's under that. So if that cascades down into
finance strategy,
business strategy, finance, all of those kind of things, and yeah, so those are, and then scale it up across the UK and then international, which I'm looking to keep learning and learning the operations and the mechanics of how you grow this internally from an excellence standpoint and externally from a traction standpoint.
100%.
You know, key part of my learning that I'm looking to harness learnings from, because that is a driver for, I intend to lead the business from a personal brand standpoint, accelerate the building of the personal brand, and then just say, oh, that tool is what you should use. We should reach out to my team and all of this kind of thing. So that's the strategy, and then just keep growing it until the Lord gives any other specific direction. I should say one more thing though.
Sure.
Generally speaking, I know, I've always known this from a long time ago, that I've got a future in politics.
I did not see that coming. I did not see that coming at all.
Now, because I actually
wow.
I was going to ask you this.
I didn't see that coming.
Well, yeah, I've just always known. It's just always been a knowing. I don't expect that to happen anytime soon.
Yeah.
I was actually going to ask you, how do you, I mean, from your perspective, right now the primary objective is enterprise and growing that. But knowing that at some point in the future that is going to happen, are there any specific things I should be doing right now?
I think, man, first, I didn't see that coming. Second, I think, look, if you're going to play in politics, you must accept that there is no clean way to play a dirty game. And I think the thing that holds a lot of people back from getting involved in politics is if you're reasonably intelligent, then from the outside you can see how dirty the game is. You don't have to be a rocket scientist. You begin to realize that there are no such thing as enemies, only interests. And so People will say things about you that are slanderous, that are not true. They don't need those things to be true. They just need those things to soil your image. I've had this happen to me, right? So I know it. I know it very, very well. So the real question you got to ask yourself is, what is your appetite for playing dirty? Because you're going to have to do it.
Okay.
And the reason that the answer to that question is important is because way too many well-intentioned people are naive about what it takes to succeed in politics. And so they think good intention, they think reputation, character, credibility, they think education, networks, relationship, all of those very necessary assets in every other form of leadership are what it takes to succeed in politics. It isn't. What it takes to succeed in politics is the ability to put your foot on your enemy's neck and not take it off no matter what happens. No matter how bad it looks, no matter what people have to say, you just keep the foot on their neck and you do not let it off until you win. And unless you have that kind of doggy killer instinct that is able to suspend morality and ethics for the pursuit of an end goal, you're going to struggle in politics.
Okay, there's a lot of thinking to do.
So do you get it? So what I'm saying is, I mean, if you want to do it, do it. But for do not be naive. I've just seen way too many people get into it with a complete sense of naivety around what it's going to take to really, really make it. Which is why those people who generally are ready for it don't want to do it, because they understand exactly what it's going to take to operate in that space. Okay. I think that's the first thing I would say. The second thing I would say is I certainly I've previously misjudged this. And it took me 10 years to learn just how powerful this is. And now that I've understood it, I'll go flat taps on it. People, and I must be careful how I phrase this, people don't believe what's true. They believe what's often said. So you and I work in the real world. In the real world, if you're doing a financial model, a number is a number is a number. You can extrapolate that number any way you want. You can change some of the variables and the assumptions. But the laws of mathematics hold. 1 + 1 will give you 2. You can't change those things.
Absolutely.
And so in the world we live in, the world of business, things often as they are presented are. A balance sheet is, especially if it's been audited, it's a series of facts about the state of a business.
Sure.
Right. This is not the way people work. It's not the way sentiment works. It's just not the way society works.
Absolutely.
So people's. I'll give you a simple example. In South Africa, you'd be hard-pressed to find a white person that supported apartheid. But the apartheid government didn't vote for itself.
Yeah.
Somebody voted for it.
Absolutely.
Where are all these people? I'll tell you where they are. They're right in front of you. Their kids go to school with your kids. They are at the same gym that you go to. They are in the same society you're in. And they had no problem supporting a deeply unethical, immoral system of prejudice. So how then does it change? Well, what changed was the narrative and the messaging. And when it suited them to support a particular narrative and messaging, they did.
They did.
And when the narrative and messaging no longer suited them, they changed their minds. That's politics.
Interesting.
If you can adjust your mind to the fact that in politics, people don't actually hate you. I'm in a couple of political groups on WhatsApp, and I watched Keir Starmer, who just became the leader here, went from not being mentioned at all, on particularly the UK group I'm in, to all of a sudden being called all sorts of names. And I was like, but who did he offend? And then I realized he offended nobody. He just became the leader. And in politics, all you need to do to bring upon criticism is just put your hand up and say, I'm willing to do the job. And everybody will criticize you for it. So do not, whatever you do, if you want to get into politics, do not, whatever you do, underplay the power of propaganda. Propaganda is everything. It really is, as Joseph Goebbels said, it is the formation of the foundational layer of the ethics in society. If you understand that, you'll understand everything. People don't understand that the father of propaganda was also the father of PR. These are literally the same things.
Same thing.
And the only reason he changed the name from propaganda to PR was because propaganda became a bad name used by the Nazi government. And he said, well, I still want to have a way of relating with the government, with the public, so what am I going to call it? He called it public relations. So image is a construct. What people perceive you to be is a construct. Who people think you are is a construct. And you can change that image simply by changing the messaging, by repeating it often enough, with enough intensity from a wide enough base that you can actually change the narrative. It isn't rocket science. People today will think you're a demon, and tomorrow will think you're an angel.
Play out.
And the only thing that's changed is the narrative and the messaging and what people are saying.
Absolutely.
So this is, by the way, this is the power of the United States. The United States understands this well. That's why you've never watched a movie coming out of Hollywood where the United States Army goes into any country and it's done the bad thing. Yet we know, if you read, all you've got to do is just read the Benghazi documents about what happened in Benghazi. And all of a sudden you go, hold on, actually, maybe the Americans were not the good guys here, right? And if you read some of the historical books, stories, and particularly historians' accounts about what happened in Vietnam, you go, maybe the Vietnamese weren't the bad guys here. And all you got to do is just keep arcing back. And yet every single movie that comes out of Hollywood that portrays the United States Army in the battlefield, the United States Army, why? Because it's the only way Uncle Sam can get younger people to join the army and to perpetuate the system. So I used to make that mistake. I no longer make that mistake. Do not ever underestimate how important public relations, PR, and constructed imagery is in creating a political workhorse, right? It's something many African leaders, by the way, just completely negate. They don't understand how important it is to not only have a PR machine when you're running for office, but that you've actually got to double down on your PR machine when you are in office, right? Because now that you're in office, you have the resources. And you're driving a nation state. And you got to remember this. Most countries are split in half. Most countries. Here, it's the Tories and, it's conservative or Labour. In the US, it's Republican or Democrat. In South Africa, it's a bit more spread, but it's fundamentally the ANC on the one end, and somebody could argue the DA on the other end, depending on how you read the political spread. But in most countries, societies are split in half, which means if you're going to lead a society, any decision you take is going to offend half of the population. That's baked into the math. So if you don't have the ability to make a big noise about the good work you're doing and why that good work matters, you're going to be blinking in the dark.
That's quite interesting, and it's great that you mentioned that, but I will keep that in mind, dig a bit into it and keep it in mind. But that for me is a 10, 15, 20 year ago, and you're asking about 5 years. So 5 years is focus on the business and grow it extensively, grow my personal brand. There's something I wanted to ask you.
Before you ask the thing you want to ask, I will say just very quickly on the political thing, don't forget your question. I will say this. The other thing to remember, which is fundamental to remember in politics, is, how do I say this? Slanderous information doesn't age. Politics is one of the very few places where bad information about you doesn't age, as long as it's unknown. In other words, you could run for politics 50 years from now. You'd be 70-something years old, and you stole a loaf of bread at 6. If somebody can find the piece of video where you stole that loaf of bread and you didn't disclose it, they're going to run a campaign on, can you trust the man who once stole a loaf of bread, right? And meanwhile, you spend 60 years of your life like building enterprises, being a CEO, helping entrepreneurs raise money, being a global speaker. They will completely forget the 60 years, and they'll focus on that one time that you stole a loaf of bread, and then they won't also give context. They won't say, well, he stole a loaf of bread because he came from a poor background, he was hungry, his mother was ill on the day, dad had gone to work, hadn't come back for 3 days, and he had to find a way to feed his younger sisters. And so he went to the shop and he stole a loaf of bread. Context completely doesn't matter, and bad information doesn't age. So you want to get into politics, a friend of mine said this to me. He was like, beat them to the punch and disclose everything about yourself up front. It was like, tell them everything. And then now they can't use it against you. Just be like, listen, once when I was 4 years old, I, punched a girl on the playground at the preschool. It wasn't my fault. She said I was ugly, and I punched a girl, and I'm sorry. I'm sorry that happened. But the point is, I think it's important, and I'm speaking quite impassioned about it because you've raised it. But I think it's important to say that as Africans, we also have the responsibility of recognizing that precisely because politics is a swamp, right, means that it produces swamp-like outcomes. And so if you look at the nature of the place we come from, the countries we call home, this continent that we all love, right, it often underperforms its own potential.
Sure.
Because it's led by people who operate with swamp mentality. Right. So anytime you're going to get into the political system, yeah, man, you have to begin to understand that if you're going to walk into the political system, it has its own hierarchy, its own set of rules, and there is somebody who is premier to take the post you're trying to take. They're not going to just walk in and let you take their position. And so they will throw the entire machinery of the swamp at you. And woe be unto you if you are naive. Right? Because you're going to have really steely resolved. It's going to be painful. It's going to hurt. I'm going to have to hear things about myself I don't want to hear. They're going to say things about me that are probably not true. But I'm going to ride this out because I believe it to be true. Awesome. What was your question?
Well, my question was about faith and enterprise, leading from a place of faith. I've had this personally, but then also when you started becoming more vocal about your faith, I've always believed, when you are yourself, you literally, when you shine, you let your light shine, you give other people permission to shine theirs.
Sure.
That's happened to me, and from what you've done, and also I've even had people come to me when I talk about my faith publicly, like on platforms like LinkedIn, while I'm doing a post on investment readiness, I'm talking about how I'm values-led and my values are Christ-inspired and things of that nature. Talk to me about the importance of that, particularly in this age.
Well, I think, so first, I'm woefully unqualified to talk about this. And I offer that up front because one of the enemy's very handy tools, the minute you proclaim your love for our Lord and Savior, is he presents to you all of the moments in your life when you have been less than perfect. And it's ironic, if not funny. We go to Christ because we are broken. We don't go to Christ because we're perfect. Right. So when the enemy's people try to show me my imperfections, I'm going, that's why I went. Right. You're not telling me anything I don't know. So I'm woefully unqualified. I always say when people say, how much of the Bible do you know? I'm like, I'm still on 1 Kings. I'm making my way. I haven't reached Revelations yet. I'm still on 1 Kings. But what I found was that the issues, the things I have struggled with, and the instances of my life where there has been real struggle, it's only been my Lord and Savior that saw me through them. And how dare I be quiet about a God who backed me loudly? Right? So let me say it differently. I don't care for the love and acclamation of the world because I have experienced the disdain of the world.
Especially at the times when
Especially at the time. In other words, when my Lord and Savior was on my corner backing me, everybody else wasn't. Why would I care what everybody else has to say? There's that old expression. Somebody said, "I don't care for your cheers." I don't care for your cheers. Oh, no, it was different. The person said, "I don't care for your boos because I've heard who you cheer for." Right. So if you're cheering for that guy, I actually don't care that you boo for me. So that's where I'm at with my relationship with God. I'm just like, God backed me loudly. My entire life is because God has backed me, and Jesus Christ has been in every single one of the battles I've ever faced, even those that I didn't know.
Absolutely.
Right? So if that's how my Lord and Savior has shown up, I have no problem proclaiming him to the world. Absolutely. And if you have a problem, guess what? You're doing me a favor because that's actually a sieve for how I stay away from you.
Absolutely.
I don't want to be relating with you anyway, right? And I think it's something a lot of people still don't understand. We don't say we're better because we have a foundation in Christ. That's not what we say at all. In fact, that's why we say reduce me and amplify you, right? It's not that I'm better because I have my foundation in Christ. It's precisely that I'm trying to get better that I have my foundation in Christ. So you can use that any way you want. You can throw it against me if you want. You can try and besmirch my name if you want. But guess what? The only round of applause that matters to me is the round of applause of my Lord and Savior. Absolutely. How do I care what you have to say?
Absolutely. Thank you so much. That is gold. That is gold. Last question I'm going to ask you, because I'm mindful of time, is I think I touched on it earlier, growing as a speaker, both in terms of the internal work that delivers excellence, and then external traction. Because generally speaking, I mean, I get a speaking engagement, I know what I'm talking about, I do my prep, research the audience, prep, do whatever I need to do. But I mean, a few times across the, many different media that you've put out there, that you've referenced a few instances, or you've referenced the work that goes in behind to talk about a lot of research and things of that nature. What are those things that, from your perspective and your experience and from your career, that drives excellence from the inside process? And then what are the things that drives traction on the outside?
I would say that for me, I mean, I can't give you all the tricks, right?
Yeah. One will do.
Yeah. They say a master can't teach you all of his tricks.
Yeah.
But I would say that there are three things I would highlight. The first is you have to be relentlessly curious. Which you are. But a lot of people struggle in public speaking, or a lot of the people who tend to struggle in public speaking, it's in part and not completely, but in large part because they lack a sense of curiosity. So if you're not curious, then searching for and finding information is a chore. If you are, it's a game.
Yeah.
Right. So, and that pursuit of new information keeps your mind fresh. And it gives you a great sense of like elasticity. You're ambidextrous. You're able to be analytical, quantitative, but also kind of qualitative, emotive driven. You can play both hands because you understand that's just how the world works. You can be highly scientific and reason driven, and then you can delve very deeply into matters of the metaphysical, into matters of the spiritual, and just be as equally immersed. And you don't find the need to make the one discount the other because your mind is curious.
Absolutely.
You have no problem accepting both to be true. I can accept that you can be wet and dry at the same time. I can accept that the answer to the equation can be 1 and 0 at the same time. And the way I often explain it to people, it's like when you watch the Marvel movies and they talk about the multiverse. It's the idea that the same thing can be multiple things at the same time, but all at different times. If you're able to have that level of curiosity, I think that's cool. The second thing would be for me, a superpower still is the ability to immerse myself in the lives of the audience, see the world through their lens, and then come out and stand in my position and speak to them. And if you think about like any good public speaker, even great comedians, right? The jokes they make are jokes you relate with.
Absolutely.
Which means they had a moment where they experienced something as you,
from their perspective,
and then left and they were like, that's odd. Y'all shouldn't be doing that, right?
Absolutely.
And so just the ability to, I actually can't overstate it. The ability to leave your sense of comfort and your sense of familiar and go to an environment where you're completely unfamiliar and experience it for what it is, and then come back to your space and your environment and look back at it and go, I don't know how you guys do that because that's very, very strange to me.
Absolutely.
Now, what is interesting is often when you do that to your audience, they know it's strange too, right? So they'll relate with that. And then the third would be, you have to have something you say or something you know that nobody has said or nobody knows. And that has to be a deliverable at every single time you're on the platform. It certainly is for me. There has to be something I say that nobody has said before, or something I know that nobody in the room knows. This is why you're invited into the room.
For each platform.
For each platform. And so if it's 200 platforms a year, you better get those 200 things. And it's not just that it must be something you know or can say, but it must also be that it must relate.
Yeah.
So we were at NeoFest together, right? Yeah. NeoFest is essentially about women in technology. And to me, what actually struck me when I was preparing for it was, I don't know why we struggle. Let me say it differently. I don't know why society struggles with the idea of women in things when society is women.
Absolutely.
Right? So I'm like, well, so women in technology, women in science. Women are in everything. And this is why I made the point about, if you go to a community that holds together the church, it's women.
Absolutely.
If you go to a group of people that hold together the society and the community you come from, the village you come from,
women.
It's women. If I came to your home, it's women.
If I come to your school, it's women. Women are in everything. So why is it so foreign to us that we have to engage on, do women have residence? Do they have equity in certain spaces? It's pretty clear that women are in everything. And so what I was saying in the room that day was, women, you don't need permission to be, just be, because you already are, right? And the only persons who've convinced you shouldn't be in those spaces are people who've actually spent their time making sure you can't occupy those spaces, which therefore means you should be even more intentional about making sure that you register your voice, right? So if you remember, I said on my keynote, I was like, and then I said, and by the way, feel free not to assimilate, because one of the things design spaces do is it forces us to assimilate to be something.
Definitely.
But feel free not to assimilate. Show up in your full African regalia, in all of your color, talk as loudly as you want. Do not assimilate to those spaces, because when we are invited to a space and we assimilate, what we actually do is we do a disservice not only to the space, but also to ourselves. First to ourselves, because we have to forget who we are, but more importantly to the space, because we don't transform it so that it becomes a space that's all-inclusive for all of us. So for me, I'm like very intentional about just not assimilating. I am very happy to come into a space and be the guy that stands out and be the guy that's contrarian. As long as I can back up what it is that I have to say, as long as I'm not intentionally trying to be controversial, as long as it's done in good intent, and more importantly, as long as it creates permission for others to see, think, and feel in similar ways, then all of us have a responsibility not to assimilate. So you have a responsibility as Davies to operate in this space and to let the people in the space know you can come from where you come from, go to where you went to school, grow up where you grew up, and still run a successful investment readiness company in the place you're running it, even though you're not from here. Because what it does when they can connect where you're from with where you are is it removes this disease of exceptionalism, right? That Davies only succeeds here because he's the exceptional one. And the truth is, I don't think you and I are exceptional. I just think you and I are the ones who got out.
Absolutely.
Certainly when I was growing up, there were plenty of people who were more talented than me.
Oh, absolutely.
Plenty of people much smarter than me. I'm just the one that God showed grace, and I'm out of there. And I'm able to succeed at a different level, at a more global level. So I'm very well aware that I represent a total of other people who are just as capable. Yeah, so I'm not assimilating. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to change that space so that other people. We just did an event in Trinidad. The guy who put it together, Michael Seeley, said something. He said in like this heavy, like Caribbean accent. He says, "You don't know what you did, man." I said, "What?" He said to me, "You just had an event here, the likes of which only white speakers can do."
Breaking the mold.
He was like, "Man, the only other time we've had that conference room booked and it was that full and it was a speaker on a stage, it's never been a person of color. It's certainly never been an African. Never. So if I'm going to walk into that space and I'm going to break that glass, I'm going to make sure that I'm taking all of me, not half of me, not some of me. I'm taking all of me so that every other person who follows knows that, oh, okay, so you actually can do an event in Trinidad and it's got like 2,000 people in it. That's great. You can do an event in Tanzania and it's got 2,500 people in it. Okay, great. So these are okay. We can actually occupy these spaces.
Absolutely.
And I take that, for me, at the stage I'm at in my career, I take that as a fundamental part of what God has called me to do. Be in the room where you are not necessarily invited, and when you're in the room, you're not necessarily welcome, and make sure that you don't assimilate, but deliver so ruthlessly that when you leave, they might not like you, but they can't disagree with the fact that you were the best amongst them.
Absolutely.
And that, for me, that's the task. They don't have to like you, but when you leave, they have to go, they don't like you, but damn, he's good. Right?
And I should say that actually, my life and my journey is a testament to that, because in 2015, when I started following you and started watching your content, it was like, this is the guy. Like, he's got a finance background. He's strategy mind. He's a speaker. I've got a finance background. My mind is strategic.
Yeah.
I'm a speaker. He's African.
Yeah.
So for me, all through the years from 2015 till date, you've always shown me what was possible. And for that, I am immensely grateful.
God is good.
I'm immensely grateful.
God is good.
And so for me, the opportunity to finally meet in person today has been 10 years coming.
Here we are. In Birmingham. From Lagos and Joburg to Birmingham.
Joburg to Birmingham. And, through all the Dragon's Den, and then the podcast, and then the 2 books. Where's the third one coming up, by the way?
It's already done. But
Oh, great. When are we laying our hands on?
yeah, it's already. Everybody asks me this.
Hey, family. I just wanted to say thank you to the 1.7 million of you who are returning viewers on our channel. When the team shared that with me, I swear, I almost fell off my chair. I was like, 1.7 million people who return to watch the content on the channel. That's just unbelievable. I'm so humbled that you find the content we share valuable. And I promise we're going to do the best we can to keep bringing you content of value. I do have an ask though. 66.4% of you that watch the channel have yet to subscribe. You know what would really help me? I've got a running bet with the team, and we want to see if we can get that to below 60%. I need a favor. I need you to scroll down the video. You're going to see that bell icon, and I need you to press it, because then you're going to subscribe, and you're going to help me meet my metric. We have some exciting guests we've got planned for you, some incredible guests we've already shot. You would have met Kasim for our first Ideas That Matter Plus video format of the content podcast, and it's already gone viral. We literally hit 30,000 views within the first day of posting it. No advertising, no marketing, we just put up a link. And I said to the team, I think we're onto something here. One of the things I'm very passionate about is making sure we leave the world better than we found it, and that we leave our community better than we found them. So, hit the subscribe button, and I look forward to sharing more content with you, more insights, more motivation, and just generally helping the world become a better place using this medium. All right, family, we'll talk soon. Cheers.
You know, the global publishing ecosystem doesn't yet think we can write about innovation or strategy, you know, or it's not been kind of our default place of contribution. I think about the unbelievable works of, you know, incredible authors like Chinua Achebe, Chimamanda Adichie, who in my opinion is just, you know, she shouldn't walk. She should just be like gliding. Yeah. She should just be like gliding. I just have, I mean, she hangs on, you know, I've got this wall of great people, and she hangs on that wall, Chimamanda, next to, you know, Frederick Douglass and Nelson Mandela, and that's, in my mind, that's how I see Chimamanda. But they've had their unbelievable contributions in the world of fiction, and so the world knows we can very much contribute at that. We also are great at contributing in terms of the autobiographical space.
Definitely.
You think about Nelson Mandela's Long Walk to Freedom, and I can just keep, you know, quoting several others. But particularly in that non-fiction space, in the space where we're writing about business and strategy, and there isn't a lot of work there. And so for me, I'm like, well, that's the space I want to dominate, and that's the space I want to work in. We did our first book, Magna Carta, did unbelievably well. We did the second book with and then on this one, I said to the team, I said, we've got to find a way to do it at a global level. And so we announced this deal we've just done in the UAE, which as it rolls out, you'll begin to see the impact of that. But for me, what I'm really like, it's a big driver of mine now. I want to see more and more of us. I want to see more and more of us writing about the venture ecosystem in Africa. And I want to see that book be a bestseller. And I don't mean a bestseller by its stands of like 3,000 copies, and no offense to anybody who does do those kind of numbers, but I mean a bestseller in like 50,000 copies numbers,
Absolutely.
right? And so it means, because it would mean that for somebody to be writing it and for it to sell that many copies, there is in the supply, there is sufficient demand. And so I think we also have to teach a lot of the Africans who are, you know, buyers of books, that we can also contribute in this kind of space, and they can read the space. So I want to see an African strategist right next to John Cotter and, you know, Jim Collins and all of these guys. And somewhere there, I want to see the African guy. You know, if Roland Berger's writing a thought piece, I want to see the African guy in that space. And I think we have to be very intentional and very driven about existing in those spaces. Otherwise, what happens is this. What will continue to happen is we'll continue to be the importers of, you know, 2x2 frameworks and models from Europe and the US, right? So Bain, McKinsey, and somebody else will design it somewhere, and then we will import it into our environments. Whereas you and I both know that as much as that is true, and a lot of those models are universally true, our environments also have specific nuances.
Context, absolutely.
And only so if I said to you, write a book about what it takes to run. Write a book about what it takes to run a small accounting practice in a fast-changing economy with a currency that's declined 67% over the past 12 months, like Nigeria. Only you can write that book.
Absolutely.
You and maybe another, accountant from, I imagine, like Venezuela or something like this. But there isn't a lot of those kind of examples. And so we have to begin to think about our experiences as ways for us to contribute into the ecosystem. We've got to begin to document our stories.
Absolutely.
In large part, the reason Africa has a challenge with how she perceives herself is in large part because our story about our past is broken, right? And so because that story has broken parts, we struggle to relate with ourselves. And I travel all over the world. I meet black people all over the world, and all over the world they have to recognize that if you are black, you are African. You might be third or fourth generation born in Watford. You're African, Chief.
Absolutely.
You're African. No, my parents came from the Caribbean. Yes, they got there from Africa. I don't know. Like I don't know how many times I tell you this. If you was black, you was African. That's the But a lot of that story has just been broken, and so I think we have a responsibility to document those stories. That's why I love reading African literature. That's why I mentioned the authors that I mentioned, because the work that they do is about writing our stories. So that I mean. Half of a Yellow Sun is an absolute must-read for everybody. Now, admittedly, I've watched the movie before I read the book.
No, I see.
But I was sat on the plane. I was watching this movie. I'm flying to Lagos. It was actually my very first time flying to Lagos. And on the airplane, they've got those movies. And I chose like Half of a Yellow Sun. Watched this movie. I was like, this is unbelievable. Now listen to how God works. I'm watching the movie, and the lady sitting next to me at the time was a head of investment banking at one of the largest banks there. And she said, did you enjoy the movie? I said, yeah. She said, I was one of the funders of the movie. Oh. I was like, wow. She said, yeah, we funded the movie. She said, do you know the author? I said, no, I did not. And then she told me it was written by Chimamanda. She said, you've actually got to get the book. So I arrive in Lagos, I do the work, and I'd asked somebody and got the book. And then kind of like didn't read the book for like a month or two, got some downtime, read the book, and it opened my eyes to the history of Nigeria, to the civil war that took place, to all of those things. So we have to write those stories. Now, if we accept that we have to write the stories about how our societies have formed and how our past has formed, has brought us to where we are, then it also means we have to write stories about how we did business.
Definitely.
And it has and if we don't write those stories, who's going to write it for us? So I want to read those stories, and I want to read those stories about how we did business yesterday. I want to read those stories about how we're doing business today, and I want to read those stories about how we see business for tomorrow. And we have to write those stories. Nobody else is going to do it for us.
Let's make it happen.
Yeah. So it's a good conversation. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, VC.
Good man.
VT, thank you so much.